start off by thanking everyone for coming today, to pay our respects to Magda Davis, Raisi Basafrayim. My name is Rabbi Benjamin Blau. I have the honor of serving as the Rabbi of Green Road Synagogue, which was the successor to the Mamisha Jewish Center that she knew so well. And it is my great honor to pay tribute to a wonderful woman. We're going to start off by saying a parak of Tehillim, a chapter of Psalms. Parak Chaf Gimel, chapter 23. Mizmor LeDavid, Adonai roi lo echzor, binos desha yarbitzeini, al memenuchos yinaleini. Nafshi yishovev, yancheni b'maglei tzedek leman shimo, gam ki elech b'geit salmoves, lo irara ki ato imodi. Shivtecho mishantecho hema yenachamuni, tarok lefanai shulchan neget zoriroi. Dishanta v'shemen roshi kosi rivoyo, achto v'chesed yudefuni ko yemei chayai, v'shavti v'ez Adonai li'orech yamim. A song of David, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not lack. God makes me lie down in lush pastures, God leads me beside tranquil waters. God restores my soul and guides me in righteous path for God's name's sake. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your scepter and staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in full view of my adversaries. You have anointed my head with oil, my cup overflows. The only goodness and kindness pursue me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord for length of days. We gather today really to mark the end of an era, as we say goodbye to a beloved mother, grandmother, great-grandmother, and sister, and aunt, Magda Davis, one of the last of the survivors. But I have to admit, it's very, very poignant. I've had this too often over the last few years. The shul, the Green Road Synagogue, was built by survivors. They were the heart, and the passing of this great woman means another end of this chapter. While she was small physically, she was great in stature. She survived the horrors of the Holocaust and amazingly built an incredible life with her husband Henu. They had 3 children, 8 grandchildren, 11 great-grandchildren, all following in her tradition. Born in a small, simple town in Czechoslovakia, her childhood was spent in the Carpathian Mountains. They lived a very basic existence. Her husband would later tease her that at least his town had running water. But it was shattered by the Shoah. At the young age of 13, she went to the camps. Her sister saved her life, and while both of them survived, her parents and her family were murdered. After the war, she spent time in an orphanage in London, and it was there that she met her husband and they started a life together. The group was incredibly tight-knit. All these young individuals, all under 18, except her husband, and they would remain tight-knit and close throughout her life. She and her husband came to the United States in 1950, and materially, they had nothing. The war had ended her education at 4th grade, but both she and her husband were incredibly resourceful. She worked as a seamstress. He too worked long hours, and somehow they made it work. They were able to send all 3 of their children to college. And as they said, she squeezed 95 cents out of every dollar that they made. The way to describe her was she was an amazing balabasta. She always looked good, and their house was immaculate. She cleaned constantly, and as many people of that era, she kept plastic on the furniture. Most importantly, she did everything herself. There would be huge family gatherings, and she'd be in the kitchen the whole time making fantastic food. The family described when they tried to help her and get her a dishwasher, she refused to use it. It simply became another rack for her dishes. In that sense, she remained very old school, very connected to the old country, and yet she learned how to drive a car, and with her husband really became part of America. The various foods that she made were legendary. Her children remember her strudel and her sponge cake. Her grandchildren fondly recall the latkes that they ate piping hot, as well as delicious blintzes. Of course, everything was made from scratch. A good European grandmother, she insisted that no one ever ate enough food, and so they happily gave family the leftovers. Family was everything to her, everything. She treated her husband like royalty, and her children-in-law remarked how much she loved them. She was a wonderful mother-in-law. While she was very protective of her children when they were young, she supported and loved them fully. She loved her grandchildren completely, was happy to spend time with them, and was ready to give them guilt trips for not calling her enough. "You're leaving" was one of her constant refrains. They had come when they were ready to complain that they were leaving. She treated all of them equally, even if they ranked whom she loved best. And I know you were having debate about that yesterday, but I'll leave that aside. Her love for her family extended to the nephews and nieces. They all felt like she was a second mother to them. She carried other people's problems, sometimes to a fault. Having lost so much of her own family, her social life was incredibly important to her. Everyone had been lost in the Holocaust, and her friends loomed very large in her life. Amazingly, she had both American and European friends, although the latter group, the Mamarshas, were particularly special to her. They would go to the lake together. Everyone would bring their own food and would simply have a great time. When her children got married, her circle widened as the in-laws' families became part of the larger gatherings. There would be no space once you sat down, but everyone would be there. Yiddish was one of her core languages. In fact, I was thinking today that I should have given this eulogy in Yiddish, but I'm not sure that would have worked for everyone. But she and her husband spoke many other languages, mostly when she didn't want the kids to understand. She loved playing cards, was both an excellent player. The grandchildren said she won 75% of the time. They didn't talk about if she was always being honest, but we'll leave that aside. And she was extremely competitive. She was quite a backseat driver with unusual eyesight in those unique situations. Overall, though, her key phrase was, "Don't worry about it." This is a woman whose life wasn't easy. She lost her parents in the Shoah. Her husband died when she was just 64, and yet she persevered and created an amazing family who have wonderful memories of her. Her children took great care of her, whether she was in Cleveland or in Florida. Her grandchildren were connected to her forever. And as she got older, she wanted to return very much to her religious roots, and her passing was peaceful. In many ways, she lives on. She lives on in everyone who's here. There's a famous phrase that we say, our sages tell us, that Yaakov Avinu, Jacob, our forefather, did not pass. And the question is, the Torah, the Bible describes his passing. What does that mean? And the answer, of course, is he lives on in all his descendants. She lives in her descendants. She lives in her children. She lives in her grandchildren. She learns in her great-grandchildren. Yehi Zichra Baruch. May her memory be a blessing. I do want to read one more item. It's a note from her grandson that he wrote. How old was he, Mindy? Third grade. And I think all the grandchildren would agree with the words expressed by Ryan, who's not here. My hero is my grandma. She has always been there to help me through hard times. Like when my grandpa died, she was the one to comfort me. And wouldn't you know it, she was probably the most calm of all. She also always has special gifts and food for me. She has influenced me in many ways. Being a Holocaust survivor, she has taught me never to give up. This lesson is carried over through school, sports, and everyday activities. She has also taught me never to be shy. She is generous, caring, and very, very, very protective. This is the only way I can thank her, and this is why she is my hero. She's from a generation of heroes, a generation that we've lost, a generation that we'll treasure, a generation that will live within us for all time. Thank you. At this moment, I'm going to ask the children to rise. We're going to say the memorial prayer. Mole rachamim shokein b'amorim Amsei menucha nachon al kanfei Ashkina b'malot kedoshim v'tomim k'zara kiyam azirim et nishmas roizi bas Ephraim shokal le'olama Pavur sh'anachnu mispalim b'raskars nishmasa Began Eden Tehe Menuchaso Lachein Balarakamim Yasti Rabbi Sezek Nafav Liolamim Yitro B'Tzorachim Is Nishmasa Adonai Yunachalasa V'Sanuk B'Shalom Mishkava V'Nomar Amen. At this point, we're going to lower the casket. Seated. And then we'll ask all the members who are joined here together to participate in the interment, in the burial.
We got those. Wait. They're going to lower it, and then they're going to put the bar weight on top, and then you'll be able to place her up like that, okay?